Hey guys, I just want to make a quick video that I thought would be really useful for players starting out in Diablo 4. And that is an explanation of how legendaries and legendary powers work in this installment of the Diablo franchise. If you're coming from Diablo 3, then you might be slightly confused, and that is what I plan to alleviate in this video. So in Diablo 3, every legendary had a name and power that was unique to that item. So for example, an item that most of you will probably be familiar with, the Ring of Royal Grandeur. This had the power to reduce the cost of set items by 1 piece. And if you wanted this specific power, then you had to use this specific ring or cubit, but you had to get this specific item to get the power. And in Diablo 4, that's more like how uniques will function. However, legendaries work completely differently. The main difference is the legendary powers are referred to as aspects. Now, the aspect is actually the legendary power, and they can be extracted and stored in your inventory, which is in a separate tab, and you can use the aspect power to imprint on any other item. Now this can also include rare items, and if you imprint an aspect power on a rare item, it will make the item legendary. Also, certain aspects can be stored in the Codex of Power, which I'll talk more about later, but this is just another way to imprint a power onto an item. And final thing, aspect powers come in general powers, which all classes have access to, and class specific powers. So, if you're playing a druid, you will have druid powers. If you're playing a rogue, you can use the rogue powers, but obviously you can't use powers for a class that you aren't playing. So the aspect powers come in different categories, and this is very important to understand because certain powers can only exist on certain item slots. Aspects have 5 different categories: offense, defense, utility, resource, and mobility. And each item slot only has access to certain aspect categories. So for example, we can see in this infographic, the offensive category can only exist on two-handed weapon, amulet, one-handed weapon, gloves, and ring. The defensive category can only exist on amulet, helm, chest, and pants, and so on. I made this infographic to give you an easy to follow example, but this is very important to understand. Because if you find a power that you want, it can only go on certain slots, depending on the category of the aspect. So you have to keep that in mind when you are trying to make builds or when you're looking at aspects to put on your gear. The other thing about aspects are the amulet and two-handed weapons have bonus to the effect. So as you can see, the amulet has a plus 50% power bonus to any power on the amulet, and it can have all 5 slots. So depending on your build, you'll probably want to put your most powerful aspect on the neck. Now, if you notice down here, the two-handed weapons have a bonus of 100%, and the weapons can only have offensive powers. However, keep in mind, if you equip 2 one-handed weapons, then you can have 1 additional aspect on your gear, whereas the two-handed power gets plus 100% bonus. If you're dual wielding, then you can have 1 power and another power. So 1 total extra power from dual wielding, so you'll have to make a decision there as well. So I mentioned the Codex of Power before, and what this is an additional tool to help build your character that stores certain aspect powers you unlock by completing dungeons. Now, these powers are a permanent unlock, and you unlock them once you complete the dungeon automatically. You can use the Codex of Power aspect infinitely, without needing to extract it from an item first. However, there's some caveats to this. Not every power is available in the Codex, and Codex powers are always minimum value. So while it is a useful tool to help, especially while leveling, if you're trying to min-max your character in the end game, you're still going to want to find these powers on an item with the high roll so that, well, it's a higher value. The last thing I wanted to talk about was uniques. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, uniques are more like what you're used to in Diablo 3, where it is a unique item, for example, a helmet with a unique name that has a specific power, and you can only get this power by finding this exact helmet or any other item. However, in Diablo 4, uniques are very rare. I'm not sure the exact drop rate, but you cannot expect to get these in the same way you did in Diablo 3. That will be your legendaries. Uniques are very rare items that take many hours to find. So that's all I have for this video, and I hope it helped you with any confusion about legendaries that you had, and I wish you all luck in the launch of Diablo 4. I'll see you there.